Are we surprised at this point? We shouldn't be surprised, and I'm almost annoyed by the amount of pearl clutching that is happening amongst conservatives, and we need to stop it. We need to call it out for what he is. Mark Carney and the Liberal Party as a whole are borderline dictators. That's what they desire. That's what they want. They've shown it in Justin Trudeau over the past 10 years, and they're going to do it again with Mark Carney leading their party. That's who they are. You don't know what I'm talking about? Well, we'll just watch the video that everyone has been talking about, and you'll see what I mean.
To do is to use all of the powers of the federal government, including the emergency powers of the federal government, to accelerate the major projects that we need in order to build this economy and take on the Americans.
Going to invoke emergency powers to get the projects done that we need and take on the Americans. You know, the emergency powers that have only been used once, technically at least underneath that name, technically twice in our whole history. And then we found out that the last time it was used unconstitutionally. It didn't meet the threshold for it needing to be used. But did that stop them? No. These people are pseudo-fascists. Hate to use a strong language, but I'm going to start using it because we need to call it out for what it is, because I am not even playing games with these people. Over the past 2 days, we've covered all the Chinese ties to the Liberal Party and how they continue to instigate and use those connections and allow China to have an incredible influence over our politics and in our country. So when you hear something like this, when you see something like this, what echoes to me is this story from 10 years ago.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China. Their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime.
There's your reminder. There's a level of admiration I have for the basic dictatorship of China. And we rightly freaked out on him for that 10 years ago, but the public forgave him. Oh, he's not that bad. It was actually shortly after he won the election in 2015, he shared how much he loved Castro and mourned his loss. We yelled at him for that, and the public accepted it and moved on. To the point where we've slowly descended into levels of dictatorship that we didn't think was possible here in this country. And there's people on the left and people who are detractors who be like, oh, come on, Josh, that's ridiculous. What are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about the unlawful lockdowns that took place here, that we allowed to take place. And I know what the left's going to do. They're going to shift the blame. Oh, that was on the provinces, though. That wasn't on the federal. Oh, you mean the provinces that were 100% coerced by the federal government to lock down? Yeah, shut your mouth. This government has used every loophole possible to maintain and keep power. That is pseudo-fascism, straight up. They are actively blocking our democracy in every loophole they can. And you can technically say, oh, but they're technically within the laws, so I guess we can't. They've abused every loophole we possibly could have. It is pseudo-fascism, and you cannot change my mind on it. And seeing Carney's comments and echoed Trudeau's comments from 10 years back, I'm reminded of this article, this op-ed that Mark Carney wrote in 2022 about the convoy. He said, it's time to end the sedition in Ottawa by enforcing the law and following the money. Sedition. People wanting their rights back was sedition to this man. Okay. In our capital city, many people have been terrorized for more than a week. Okay. Women fleeing abuse have been harassed. Many elderly have been too afraid to venture outside their homes for groceries. Families have been deprived of sleep for days on end by the constant barrage of 100 decibel noise. Control over the city's downtown core, which includes the parliamentary precinct, was ceded by the police and taken over by what the chair of Public Police Services Board describes as an insurrection. Canadians can be forgiven if they thought this would never happen in Ottawa. The goals of the leadership of the so-called Freedom Convoy were clear from the start. To remove from power the government that Canadians elected that less than 6 months ago, their blatant treachery was dismissed as comic, which meant that many didn't take them seriously as they should have. Certainly not our public safety authorities, whose negotiations facilitated the convoy's entry into the heart of our capital as its dangerous infrastructure has been steadily reinforced. A policy of engagement that has amounted to a reality of appeasement. But now, it's in the second week. No one should have any doubt. This sedition, that's a word I've never thought I would use in Canada. It means incitement of resistance to or insurrection against lawful authority. On Sunday, authorities began to withdraw the line, declaring a state of emergency was the right thing to do. That's this man, and he will continue the division that Trudeau has started. Not interested in it. Don't care for it. He continued to press on the lies that the Trudeau government was using. Sedition. Okay. They want to take over our government. They wanted to have a conversation with the government. And you cowards wouldn't do it because you guys are pseudo-fascists. Of course you wouldn't want anyone who rocks the boat. Of course you wouldn't want to talk to them. No, he ran away claiming he had COVID. That's what he did. And you were in there cheering on the invokement of the Emergency Act. You couldn't wait to crack down on them. Disgusting. And this is the trend that we see from this man consistently. He was at an event, did an event in Saskatchewan, and a man was visiting, watching the event, wasn't causing a disruption, and Carney's lawyer came up to this man and told him to get out when he found out about the post this man made on Facebook that were unflattering and not viewing Carney in a favorable light. Look at this.
I'm a lawyer, sir. I'm not going to. We should give this traitor a good old warm welcome. Referring to a member in good standing as a traitor, despite your failure to spell a lot of these words, is not okay. We're challenging your membership, sir, and I'm asking you to leave. And
we're joining this party, but build our prairie upon for many years.
The fact they are going through the social media posts of people who are going to these events shows you how highly controlled they all are. They are controlling every element of this man's campaign. You saw what happened in Edmonton when they refused specific media members, but they allowed alleged CCP media in Richmond, no problem. But kicking guys like him out who weren't doing anything wrong, they were just there, but had unfavorable views online. This cannot be accepted. You can say what you want about Poilievre. You can say he's a jerk, he's mean, he's not nice, but I have never heard this rhetoric come from him. I've never seen even so much as an ounce of this coming from him. All he's been talking about is how to rebuild Canada and how to get it to be in a better space. This man is talking about cheering on the first invocation of the Emergencies Act that had failed hitting the threshold of it needing to be used. And now he's echoing wanting to use it again to get nation building projects in the green energy sector to fight the Americans. And the question is asked, can he do it? Well, folks, let's read up a bit here. What the Emergencies Act allows. The Emergencies Act can only be invoked in situations that meet the legal threshold of a national emergency, which must endanger the lives, health, or safety of Canadians beyond the capacity of provinces can handle, seriously threaten the government's ability to preserve Canada's sovereignty, security, or territorial integrity. It is limited to 4 types of emergencies: public welfare, natural disasters and pandemics, or public order emergency, which is threats to security and riots, an international emergency, which is foreign threats, and war emergency, which is armed conflict. It wouldn't apply to nation building projects. Using the Emergencies Act to push through infrastructure or development projects would likely be seen as unconstitutional and face legal challenges. Nation building projects such as pipelines, highways, or housing do not meet the legal definition of an emergency under the Act. The Act does not override the Constitution or the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. There is a requirement for parliamentary oversight, meaning the government cannot use it unchecked, and provinces must be consulted and they can challenge its use. So when you read that, it says all the right things, but you see the areas where they can push and then you know they're going to push on it. Well, we have Donald Trump threatening our sovereignty, so that's one check. It's technically a foreign threat, which is another check, which would fall under the international emergency. And also, it can't be used for nation building projects like he's just talked about here. Can't do it. But it doesn't mean he won't try. We saw what Trudeau did. All he needs to do is come up with a semi-decent argument, and he can go ahead and just do it. And Canadians will not push back except for a small minority of us who will. But the rest of Canada is so soft and will not push back. And when we find out through another inquiry, another investigation, that his Emergencies Act didn't meet the threshold of doing what he did, it'll be too late and it'll have already been done. And all they can say is, sorry, whoops. So when he says, I want to use the Emergencies Act to get these specific projects through and challenge the Americans, it just sounds so similar to Trudeau saying, I admire the Chinese and their basic dictatorship, because they can turn their economy around on a dime. The same thing. We always knew that the Liberals would try to say climate change is a national emergency. We knew that would come. But this Trump stuff has kind of just fallen in their lap. And that's why we can't give them a shot. As I said, a lot of the fascistic behavior we're seeing is coming from one side of the political aisle right now. You can dislike what the Conservatives are about. You can dislike Pierre Poilievre and some of his antics or things he's tried. But he's pushing for the side of freedom. You cannot like him, but you can't disagree with that fact. And you will try, you'll be like, oh, but he supported the convoy, which was trying to take over Ottawa. Yeah, because you believe the lies of our mainstream media and the stupid government, but that was simply not the truth. It wasn't. It wasn't. He was supporting well-meaning Canadians who just wanted their voices heard and were being ignored by this government and their fascistic behavior. That's all it was. When I hear more versions of that coming from this man right here, Mark Carney, not interested, don't care for it. And it should worry you and we should sound the alarm on it, but do not be surprised anymore. I'm just kind of done with the idea of people being shocked about it. They've shown us their whole self up to this point. They've said these things with their full chest so many times over this past 10 years, and we know everything Carney's about. We know what this Liberal Party is about. We know it's a machine, and they're just changing the face of it. Similar to what we saw the Democrats down the south of the border. It's just a machine, and they're changing the face, hoping you would forget of everything they've done. And we saw it down there when everyone was so sick and tired of Joe Biden. They put Kamala in, and all those friggin' polls jumped. And then as time went on and she started talking, those polls and those lines started to diverge late near the election. And we're seeing something similar here. And people are feeling weird about the polls, and there's something off about them. And we'll see as time goes on. We'll see. I'm going to take them as they are for what they are. Again, snapshots in time until I'm given another reason otherwise to not believe them or take them as the grain of salt that they are. But we'll see. But all we need to do, and as I've said many times, let Carney talk. Emergencies Act to enact green policy. The left will love that, but the moderates are going to be like, what? And then what we heard a couple days back where he refused to even say that we should build pipelines. Moderates will hear that and they'd be like, huh? Especially now that there's a 79% of Canadians across the country who are supporting more pipelines. Just keep letting him talk and he will bury himself eventually. Or something crazy could happen in the 9th hour and he ends up losing the Liberal leadership race, which would be wild to watch too. We'll see what happens, but keep a close eye on him and let him keep talking. And I think that's part of the concern people have is the fact that they're protecting him so much, not going on CTV, not going on CBC, not going on essentially unplanned shows, and then kicking people out of his events who could potentially be a problem. They're protecting this man at all costs because they know he's going to fall apart. I have a feeling about it. Anyways, have yourself a good one. I'm out.